It was the kind of morning poets lie about, sunlight spilling over rooftops, birds stitching songs into the sky, the world pretending it was kind. But for Kane Valor, mornings like this were dangerous. Too still, too perfect, the kind of calm that always comes before someone pulls a trigger. He stood on his porch in Baton Rouge, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. His dog, Shadow, prowled lazily across the grass, tail swaying, nose tilted toward the wind. To everyone else on that street, Kane was the quiet neighbor, polite, mysterious, the man who kept to himself. Nobody knew about the years he'd spent in deserts and jungles, the scars that mapped his body like a classified document. Nobody knew what valor really meant in Delta Force records. He'd come here to heal, to forget, to live small. But the universe has a cruel way of testing a man once he's put down his sword. The faint rumble of tires snapped his attention to the horizon. 2 police cruisers rolled in, slow, deliberate and out of place. Their windows were dark, their movement too careful. Instinct flicked on like a switch in Kane's head. "Shadow," he said quietly. The shepherd froze mid-step, head tilting, muscles coiling with silent obedience. The cruisers stopped at the curb. Doors flew open. Guns came up. "Step away from the animal," one officer shouted. Kane blinked once, disbelieving. "Excuse me?" The second cop barked louder. "Hands where we can see 'em! That dog looks dangerous." Kane's voice was calm, trained calm, the kind that unsettled men who thought they were in control. "He's not dangerous, he's trained. Please, lower your—" A bark, a shout, a flash, and then silence. The world folded in on itself, the kind of silence that rings in the ears, the kind that tastes like iron and loss. Kane didn't move for 3 whole seconds. His mind split in 2, one half screaming, the other cold, calculating, military. His breath slowed to a measured rhythm. His heartbeat faded into stillness. He looked down, his eyes tracing the patch of ground where sunlight had died. The officers were shouting now, their words muffled, distant, meaningless. Kane couldn't hear them, couldn't see anything except the emptiness at his feet. The man who had once walked through gunfire without blinking felt his hands tremble, not from fear, but from something far worse, restraint. "Sir, stay back," one cop yelled, weapons still raised. Kane's eyes lifted, slow, deliberate, unblinking, and for the first time the officers saw it, the look. That same cold, unreadable expression that soldiers wear before a storm begins. He didn't shout, didn't move. He simply said, in a voice soft enough to chill bone, "You shouldn't have done that." The words weren't loud, but something in the tone made both men step back. A kind of fear that logic couldn't explain, the feeling of standing too close to something old, trained, and unstoppable. One of the cops muttered, "Sir, this was a misunderstanding." Kane's jaw flexed. "A misunderstanding?" His eyes flicked toward the fallen leash in the grass. The morning breeze swayed the trees, carrying a hollow, final sound. "You just killed the only thing that ever pulled me out of hell." He turned his back to them, not running, not surrendering, just walking. Each step deliberate. His shadow stretched across the ground like something alive. The younger officer whispered, "You think we're in trouble?" The older one shook his head slowly, though his voice trembled. "Son, we didn't just shoot a man's dog." He glanced at the license plate on Kane's truck, a small emblem etched beneath it, one he recognized from old service days. His throat went dry. "We just woke a ghost the government tried to forget." Behind them, the screen door creaked shut. Inside, Kane set his mug on the counter. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock on the wall. His reflection stared back from the window. Same calm face, same steady eyes, but something inside him had shifted. The peace was gone. He knelt beside a small wooden chest under the table, one he hadn't opened in years. The brass hinges creaked as it lifted. Inside lay folded fatigues, a pair of gloves, a knife wrapped in cloth, and a badge that read Delta Force, Commander K. Valor. Kane ran a thumb along the edge of the insignia, exhaled slowly and whispered, "Shadow, you did your duty. Now it's my turn." Outside, the sirens had gone silent. But somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the sky, slow, heavy, and hungry. And Baton Rouge had no idea what it had just invited. The rain came without warning that night, drumming against the porch like distant artillery. Kane Valor sat in the dark, the glow of a single lamp painting his face in fractured gold. His eyes weren't red from tears. They were sharp, scanning, calculating. Years of combat had taught him to turn pain into purpose, and purpose was a weapon. On the table before him lay the file he never thought he'd open again. A faded black dossier marked Classified Delta Command Unit 47. Inside were maps, encrypted IDs, and a worn-out satellite phone. It had been years since he touched it, but his muscle memory hadn't aged a day. He powered on the phone. The screen flickered. No signal. Good. It meant the number was still ghosted. "Let's see who's still watching," he muttered. Kane slipped into a grey jacket, tugged the hood low and stepped out into the rain. The streets of Baton Rouge were quiet except for the hum of distant traffic, but he could feel it. The shift. The neighborhood wasn't just still, it was being observed. He reached the edge of the block, where Shadow's leash still lay coiled like a broken promise. Kane crouched, tracing a gloved finger over a faint indentation in the mud. Boot prints, standard-issue police tread. But next to them, smaller marks, civilian shoes. Someone else had been there. "Backup," he murmured, "or a witness." His mind clicked through possibilities like a targeting system. If those cops were regular patrol, the department would already be moving to bury the mistake. Reports rewritten, body cams malfunctioned, evidence sealed. But if he could find a gap before the rewrite... A sudden flash of light drew his eye. An upstairs curtain fluttered 2 houses down. Someone watching, someone who hadn't looked away. Kane's voice dropped to a whisper. "Got you." He crossed the street silently, each step measured. Years of stealth operations made him blend into the rain itself. When the porch light blinked on, he was already there, knocking softly. The door opened a crack. A woman in her 60s peered out, eyes wide with nerves. "You were there," she said before he could speak. Kane nodded once. "You saw what happened?" She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to spy, but I record everything from my porch camera. I was scared to delete it." "Don't," he said. "I need that footage." She hesitated. "You're not with the police?" He gave her a look that said everything, not anymore. Within minutes, he had the drive in his hand. The footage was rough, shaky, grainy, but clear enough. 2 officers approaching, Shadow barking once. Then the shot. The timestamp proved it. No command, no threat, no warning. Kane's jaw tightened. They didn't panic. They executed protocol wrong. He left without another word, disappearing into the storm. Back at his house, he connected the drive to an old military laptop. Firewalls went up, encryption layers spun to life. Within seconds, he was tracing the badge numbers, cross-referencing the cruiser plates through public databases and retired access codes he still remembered. Names appeared. Officer Brent Hale, Officer Curtis Niles, both recent transfers from neighboring counties. Both had disciplinary flags buried in minor incident reports. And both had been listed as inactive only 2 hours after the shooting. Someone high up was moving fast. Kane leaned back, the faint glow of the screen reflecting in his eyes. The soldier's calm returned. Breath even, heartbeat slow. "You're cleaning the mess," he whispered, "but you forgot the man who used to clean up for the government." He opened another encrypted folder, one labeled Contacts, ShadowNet. It wasn't official, not anymore, but it was real. A network of veterans who owed him favors, ghosts who moved through the cracks of official systems. He typed a single coded message, "Need trace, 2 uniforms, internal cover suspected, 24 hours, he hit send. The cursor blinked. Then a reply came instantly. "Copy that, Commander. Tracking begins. Welcome back." Kane closed the laptop, exhaled slowly, and looked toward the empty corner where Shadow's bed still sat. The ache was still there, raw and deep, but it had purpose now. He whispered into the quiet, "Sleep easy, boy. I'll finish what they started." Outside, lightning cracked across the clouds, painting the street in white for a heartbeat. In that flash, the reflection of a parked cruiser appeared across the road, the same department badge gleaming under the rain. They were already watching him. But Kane Valor wasn't the hunted. He was the storm coming for them. The night had a pulse. It beat in the hum of streetlights, the whisper of power lines, the soft crunch of gravel under Kane's boots. Every sound was data, and Kane was listening. He moved like smoke through the sleeping town, black hoodie up, gloves on, a small encrypted drive strapped to his wrist. The same department that killed his dog had gone silent after the incident, too silent. Files had been sealed overnight, body cam footage vanished, dispatch logs rewritten. But Kane had seen digital cover-ups before, and he knew exactly where to dig. He stopped at the corner of Pine and Rutherford, the back alley behind the Summit County Sheriff's Department. The security grid here was standard municipal grade, predictable, lazy and outdated. Kane crouched near the service box, lifted the panel, and pulled a thin black device from his pocket. The screen flickered to life, reading access node detected. Bypass protocol? He pressed yes. Within seconds, the town's network lit up across his handheld monitor, dispatch lines, surveillance feeds, encrypted memos. He slipped into the system like a ghost. No alarms, no traces. Just the rhythmic click of code unraveling under his fingers. And then, something caught his eye. A folder labeled Canine Incident, 11 billions Delta. Delta. He froze. That word wasn't random, that was him. His old call sign. Kane's jaw tightened. Whoever planted that label wasn't just hiding evidence, they were sending him a message. He extracted the file, copied fragments to his drive, and retreated into the darkness. The chill in the air thickened as he walked back to his truck parked a few blocks away. For a moment he felt the world tilt, that old sensation from missions gone wrong. Someone out there knew exactly who he was. Inside the truck he plugged the drive into his laptop. Lines of code raced across the screen, decrypting piece by piece. Then a name appeared in one of the hidden metadata logs, Lieutenant Mason Rourke. Kane stared at it. Rourke, head of Tactical Division, and the one who signed the false report. But next to his name was another field Kane didn't expect. Oversight Contact, Division 7. Division 7 wasn't local law enforcement. It was federal. Kane leaned back in his seat, piecing it together. This wasn't just a case of bad cops overstepping authority. This was part of a joint operation, and his dog, Shadow, had been collateral. He rubbed a hand over his face, exhaling slowly. "You picked the wrong man to clean up after," he muttered. Just then, the laptop pinged, connection detected. Someone was trying to trace him. He yanked the cord out instantly, heart steady, not fast. Years of training turned panic into precision. Within seconds he switched to an offline mode, wiped his footprints and watched as the attempted trace vanished. But not before a line of text flashed briefly across his screen, almost like a whisper. "We see you, Kane." He sat there in silence, the glow of the monitor washing over his face. Whoever they were, they knew his name, his past, and his every move since that night. He opened the glove box and pulled out a worn photograph. A squad of 6 Delta operatives standing beside a burning convoy in the desert. One of them was Mason Rourke. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet ever could. Kane started the engine. The mission had changed. He wasn't just chasing justice anymore, he was tracing the ghosts of his own past. And somewhere in the static of that night, as the rain began to fall, he knew the next move wasn't his, it was theirs. The rain fell like static, relentless, cold, and coded with memory. Kane sat in his truck, windshield wipers sweeping away the storm, while his laptop glowed with one frozen frame, Mason Rourke's face. The same face from the old squad photo. The same man who'd once dragged him out of a collapsing compound in Kandahar. Now the name under Oversight Contact, Division 7, burned like a curse. Kane's hands didn't shake. They never did. He'd been trained for moments like this. But under that calm, something old stirred. Not rage, not grief. Something sharper. Purpose. He picked up his encrypted phone and scrolled through a list of decommissioned numbers until he found one. Spectre. A code name he hadn't spoken in 7 years. The line clicked. No greeting, just silence, then a voice. Calm, British, too composed for this hour. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again, Wolf." "Need a favor," Kane said flatly. "Need eyes on a man named Mason Rourke. Division 7 connection, Summit County PD front." A pause. Kane. "Division 7 is ghosted. Off-grid. Black budget. If they're involved..." "I know what it means," Kane cut in. "I need their signal routes. Anyone feeding them data." "Copy that," Spectre replied. "But if you're going after them, don't expect backup. You're already dead on paper." "Then I've got nothing to lose." The line went dead. Kane leaned back and stared into the storm. Outside, the world looked clean, washed, renewed. But beneath that surface, everything rotted quietly. The kind of rot you only noticed when it reached your doorstep, or killed your dog. Minutes later, his phone buzzed again. One message, location pinged. Rourke meeting at 0300, Old Textile Warehouse, Pier 9. He glanced at the clock. 2:14 a.m., no time to think, only move. He reached under the seat and pulled out an old military duffel, dusted, faded, but familiar. Inside, a surveillance drone the size of a hand, a signal jammer, and a custom comms link designed to intercept police frequencies. Nothing lethal, not yet. As the truck rolled toward the docks, the city thinned out. Street lights gave way to silence, and silence gave way to fog, the kind that swallowed everything, even conscience. By 2:56, he was parked 2 blocks from the warehouse. Through his night vision lens, he saw 3 black SUVs lined up outside, engines idling. Men in dark coats, earpieces gleaming under the rain. One of them opened a door, and a tall figure stepped out. Mason Rourke. Kane zoomed in, heart steady. Rourke's posture hadn't changed, confident, controlled, the same soldier who once led them through enemy territory. But now, his authority came from a different war, one fought in shadows, not deserts. Kane launched the drone silently from the passenger seat. It hovered high above, recording everything. The feed streamed directly to his laptop. Inside, Rourke was speaking to 2 men in civilian clothes, suits, no ties, federal by the look of them. Kane enhanced the audio through the drone mic. The subject's clean, files scrubbed. "No trace left," one of the suits said. Rourke's tone was sharp. "He's not clean, he's trained. You think erasing a few videos hides what you did? He'll find it. He'll find us." The other man replied coolly, "If he's what you say he is, he won't come quietly. We'll need to make it look like an accident." Kane's hand tightened around the control stick. The calm in their voices wasn't fear, it was routine. They'd done this before. He recorded every word. Suddenly, one of the guards outside turned, eyes scanning the rooftops. The drone feed flickered. Signal interference. "Damn," Kane muttered, rerouting the signal through a secondary relay. But when the screen came back, Rourke was staring directly into the drone's camera, as if he knew it was there. The feed cut to black. For a long moment, Kane sat frozen. Then his laptop screen flickered to life again, this time not from his drone. A new window opened automatically. Live feed. "Rourke. Miles Kane," Rourke said, voice low and calm. "You were always good at surveillance, but you forgot one rule." Kane's pulse slowed. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't panicking. He was calculating. "What rule?" he whispered to himself. Rourke smiled through the feed. "Never hunt something that already has your scent." The video cut out. Outside, a pair of headlights turned onto the street behind him. Kane's training took over. Engine on, lights off, reverse gear engaged. The truck moved like an extension of his body. He swerved into an alley as 2 SUVs rolled past, their searchlights sweeping the street. He parked in silence, eyes narrow. They weren't just after him now. They wanted to erase the last man who could expose them. And in that moment, Kane realized something deeper. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was containment. Division 7 had created something they couldn't control, and that something was him. At dawn, the sky over Summit County looked clean. But under the calm, something was moving, something engineered. A drone hummed high above the empty streets, scanning, mapping, analyzing heat signatures. In a control van 2 miles away, Lieutenant Mason Rourke stood before a digital map glowing with red markers. Each dot pulsed like a heartbeat. "Activate the manhunt protocol," he ordered. "Already in motion, sir," replied a technician. "Facial recognition sweep engaged. Traffic cams synced. Thermal mapping across Zone 3. Rourke nodded slowly. His expression was stone, but behind his eyes there was something personal, the quiet fury of a soldier betrayed by one of his own. He leaned closer to the monitor and whispered, almost to himself, "You shouldn't have come back, Kane." The system pinged, a faint anomaly. A black pickup registered on an old highway camera, traveling west. Rourke's lips curved. "Found you." He pressed the comm. "Team 2, intercept grid Echo 9. Quietly. He doesn't vanish again." 20 miles west, Kane's truck carved through a narrow canyon road, engine steady, radio silent. His instincts told him something had changed. The air felt heavier, the silence too complete. He had lived long enough in the dark to know when eyes were watching. A flicker on the ridge above, sunlight hitting metal, not random, not natural. He tapped his side mirror, one SUV far back, another emerging behind the bend. "They're moving faster than I expected," he murmured. "You've upgraded your game, Mason." He reached into the passenger seat, pulling his handheld signal jammer from the duffel. With one flick of a switch, every tracking beacon within 50 meters scrambled. The SUVs wavered for a second, lost connection, and Kane swerved off the main road into the pine forest, silent, invisible. He parked under cover, engine off, heartbeat even. The forest was dense, the kind of place Delta used for disappear and reappear training. The irony wasn't lost on him. Then his encrypted phone buzzed, a single incoming text from an unknown number. "Give yourself up, Miles, this isn't personal." Kane smirked. "It always is." He typed back, Tell Division 7 their protocol has holes. Then he switched to passive trace mode, tracking the message's origin. Result, Pier 9, command van. Rourke's base. The manhunt had just become a chess game. Inside the command van, Rourke read the reply and froze. He pinged us, said one of his techs. He's tracing. Cut the signal. Now, Rourke barked. But it was too late. The monitors flickered once, and for a brief second, Kane's face appeared on every screen in the van. Calm, collected, unbroken. Still playing by rules, Mason? His voice came through the speakers. I stopped doing that years ago. Then the screens went black. Find him, Rourke roared. But behind that anger there was something else, unease. No one should have been able to penetrate Division 7's internal net, not even him. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Kane worked on a portable transmitter, rerouting his captured signal data. He'd seen enough from Rourke's feed to know the operation's scale: drones, intercept teams, digital kill orders. They wanted him erased completely, not captured. He whispered, "So this is what loyalty earns." A memory surfaced. Their last mission together, the night Rourke called the extraction too early and left men behind. Kane had never questioned it then, but maybe he should have. The sound of rotor blades broke his thought. 2 surveillance drones, close. Kane stayed perfectly still as one passed overhead. Then, when it tilted for a second sweep, he pulled out his EMP beacon, tossed it into the air and detonated a pulse. The forest went dark. No signals, no light, no sound. Somewhere in the chaos, a drone crashed. Kane smiled faintly. That's one eye gone. He began to move downhill, quietly, deliberately. The storm was coming, and the more they pushed, the more they revealed. He'd already planted data worms in Rourke's system. By morning, Division 7's own network would start turning against itself. At 0600, Rourke stared at a blank screen. System breach. File corruption spreading, one tech stammered. How the hell is he doing this? Rourke demanded. He's rewriting the protocol, sir, using our tools against us. Rourke clenched his jaw. Then we stop playing defense. He looked at the live satellite image of the forest, traced a route, and pointed. There. He'll head for the old ranger outpost. It's the only high ground relay point. Deploy 3 teams. Burn the forest if you have to. He turned away from the screen, his voice dropping low, almost regretful. I'll end this myself. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, Kane climbed toward the ridge, unaware that Rourke was already moving in, not as an officer, but as a hunter who once called him brother. And as he reached the ridge and looked back down, he saw something far worse than pursuit. A column of smoke rising in the distance. They weren't just coming for him. They were erasing the battlefield. Kane adjusted his headset, whispering to himself the old Delta mantra he hadn't spoken in years: when the system hunts you, rewrite the system. And for the first time since that night, he smiled. The game had finally begun. The wind had gone still over Grey Ridge. Even the pine trees that bordered the station seemed to hold their breath, watching. Inside, under the flicker of a single overhead bulb, Commander Kane Mercer sat across from Captain Rourke. Between them lay a service pistol, unloaded, gleaming like a memory neither man wanted to touch. No one else dared enter. The precinct had been cleared. Surveillance was off. The 2 men had demanded it that way. Funny, Rourke muttered, leaning back in his chair. You used to sit across from me at briefing tables, not interrogation rooms. Kane didn't reply. His eyes, calm but cold, never left Rourke's. He wasn't there to talk about the past, but the past had already walked in with him. You killed my dog, Kane finally said, his voice quiet enough to sound almost kind. A trained protector, loyal, didn't bark unless something was wrong. He paused. You called him a threat. He was a warning. Rourke smirked, but his eyes flickered. You think this is about a dog? Kane leaned forward. The movement was small, but it pulled the air tighter between them. No, he said. This is about who you've become. The silence stretched. Rourke exhaled through his nose, trying to hide the tremor in his hand as he reached for a cup of cold coffee. You don't get it. The orders changed, the world changed. You left, Kane. You went dark. We did what we had to do to keep control. Kane's jaw shifted slightly, a ghost of emotion. Control? He tilted his head. You slaughtered civilians overseas, you buried files, you built Division 7 out of fear. Not duty. Rourke's eyes narrowed. You weren't supposed to know about that. I built it, Kane said softly, before you corrupted it. That landed like a grenade in a locked room. Rourke's expression faltered, his jaw tightening with guilt, disbelief and shame. He looked down just for a second, but Kane had already seen it. "Every man I trained knew one thing," Kane continued. "The mission comes second, the oath comes first. But you," his voice darkened, "you rewrote the oath." Rourke stood, slamming his hands on the table. "You think you're clean? You think you didn't get your hands dirty? You trained us to do whatever it takes. You built killers." Kane's stare didn't move. "I built soldiers." "Soldiers kill," Rourke hissed. Kane nodded slowly. "But they don't murder." The air went razor thin. Then softly Kane reached into his pocket and slid something across the table. It was a flash drive, small, black, unmarked. "This," he said, "is every file you buried. Every order, every target, every name Division 7 erased. I sent copies to 4 networks, 2 senators and 1 man you don't want to meet, my attorney. When this room goes quiet, the world will go loud." Rourke froze. For the first time the captain looked small, stripped of rank, stripped of armor. "You can't," he whispered. "You don't know what'll happen." "I know exactly what'll happen," Kane said, standing. "The truth will do what bullets never could." Rourke's hand twitched near the unloaded pistol, trembling. His voice cracked. "They'll come for me, Kane. They'll erase me." Kane's eyes softened, just slightly. "You erased yourself the moment you followed orders you knew were wrong." He stepped back, hands behind his back like a soldier in ceremony. "But I'm giving you one last command." Rourke looked up. "What?" Kane's voice dropped to a whisper. "Make peace with the man you used to be." The captain's shoulders slumped. The tension, the pride, the anger. All of it drained out like sand from a broken glass. He looked decades older now, eyes hollow, haunted. Kane turned to leave. The echo of his boots against the concrete floor filled the empty building. Slow, deliberate, final. Behind him, Rourke's voice came one last time, barely above a breath. "Were we ever the good guys, Kane?" Kane paused at the doorway. The answer came like smoke. "We tried to be." Then he was gone. Outside, the wind picked up again, a low, whispering gust that rustled the flag on the precinct wall. Kane stepped into the night, his dog's collar still looped around his wrist. The metal tag glinted once under the streetlight. Shadow. He looked up at the stars, exhaled, and murmured, "For you, boy, mission complete." The sirens began wailing behind him, not chasing him, but chasing the truth he had just unleashed. The video broke the internet overnight. Every major outlet, CNN, Reuters, Al Jazeera, independent journalists, ran the same footage, a grainy, time-stamped video of Captain Rourke's confession, followed by documents linking Division 7 to covert civilian assassinations, domestic cover-ups, and falsified reports across 4 continents. The name Kane Mercer didn't appear once, but somehow everyone knew. In living rooms, coffee shops, and crowded trains, people whispered the same words. Whoever did this knew everything. By sunrise, 3 generals had resigned. 2 private defense contractors' stocks had crashed, and the Grey Ridge Police Department was under full federal investigation. Rourke had turned himself in at 3 a.m., wearing his old Delta Force insignia. His statement was simple. "I followed the wrong orders. This time, I'm following the right one." Then he invoked Kane Mercer's name, not as an enemy, but as a reminder. The world would never see Kane again after that night. But his message spread like wildfire through quiet channels, encrypted forums, ex-military networks, whistleblower circles. A phrase began circulating in digital ink: "Shadow lives." 3 weeks later, deep in the Rockies, a man walked a silent trail under a moonlit sky. His steps were deliberate, unhurried, the gait of someone who had stopped running from ghosts. A cabin stood ahead. Wood, stone, smoke curling from its chimney. Inside, old photos lined the mantel, teammates in uniform, medals folded in frames, and one dog tag hanging beside a worn leather collar. Kane set a kettle on the stove and sat in the silence that only mountains could understand. On the table lay a single envelope marked for when they ask. Inside was a letter. No threats, no manifesto, just words written in steady, deliberate handwriting. "We all serve something. Some serve orders, some serve power. I served a promise that no good man would die for a lie again." He signed it simply, KM, then he sealed it. By the time the sun rose over Grey Ridge, news broke of Operation Eclipse, the FBI's largest domestic purge in 20 years. The investigation, triggered by Rourke's testimony, had uncovered a shadow government unit buried under Department of Defense contracts. Hundreds of agents, politicians, and mercenary officers were indicted. In every report, one unnamed source was credited for exposing the truth. They called him the Shadow Commander. But to those who truly knew, it wasn't a myth. It was a man who once walked into a police station alone, with nothing but calm eyes and the ghost of a loyal dog by his side. Far north, the cabin phone rang. Kane let it ring 3 times before answering. A familiar voice came through, static, gravel, and a faint tone of respect. "Commander Mercer," said the man. "This is Director Salazar. We owe you a debt." Kane stared out at the snow. "I don't collect debts." Salazar hesitated. "The Bureau wants to know, are you coming back?" Kane almost smiled. The kettle whistled behind him. "Back to what? The war's still the same. They just changed the flags. Then what will you do?" Kane's gaze drifted to the mountains, endless, quiet, untouched. "Train someone better," he said. "Someone who knows when not to pull the trigger." Salazar didn't respond. "Then, for what it's worth, Commander, the world's safer because of you." Kane hung up. That night, as the wind howled across the ridge, Kane walked outside and placed the metal tag, Shadow, on a small mound of stones beside the cabin. He crouched, brushing snow from the name etched in the tag, and whispered, "Rest easy, boy. Mission's done." The northern lights flared faintly above him, silent ribbons of green and white dancing over the peaks. Kane stood there a long while, hand on his dog's collar, until the light faded and the first snowflakes began to fall. He turned toward the cabin, the door creaking open just as the wind carried one final whisper across the trees. Soft, distant, but unmistakable. "Good boy." Kane stopped, smiled once, then disappeared inside. The light went out, and for the first time in years, he slept,